Good to see your
Okay, can you
face.
hear me?
I can.
Yes,
Can you
I
hear me?
know. It's so good to actually see you. Yes, I can. Perfect. Excellent. Well, it's 6 o'clock. Perfect timing. Well, Tracy, thank you so much for joining me here. Thank you to the folks joining us live. In case you don't know, I'm Rochelle. I'm with Rise Together, and this is Traci Park. She is a candidate for City Council in District 11. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and just to be here to share a bit about your vision.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Rochelle.
Of course. So just to kind of get us started, in case you haven't joined us before or don't know who Rise Together is, Rise Together was started because we know that Los Angeles is in crisis, but that it doesn't have to be this way. We know that if, as Angelinos, we come together, we can create real and tangible change in our city. A huge part of that is electing the right leaders. And 2022 is a really special time with a ton of voter turnout, hopefully, where we can actually get new people in and really make sure that our leaders know that we're going to hold them accountable and that we want to see real change. So with that is why we are hosting these interviews, so that we can make the 2022 elections a little bit more accessible just for everyone. With that, I do want to be clear that this is not part of the endorsement process. It's not an indication of support or opposition to anyone. And a special caveat here for District 11, this is not related to the recall at all. This is simply discussing the upcoming election, regularly scheduled election for District 11. So just wanted to make that very clear as well. We are not touching the recall. So I just really appreciate you being on. And just to jump off with the first question I always jump off with, what does a city councilor do and how does it affect our lives?
Wow. Well, again, thank you so much. And thank you for all of the hard work that Rise Together is doing. I just really appreciate all of your efforts to engage voters around our city. So what does a city council member do? That's a really great question. And I'm sure most folks watching already know this. But the City of Los Angeles City Council is comprised of 15 different council members, and each of those council members have their own district of about 300,000 constituents. The City of Los Angeles has a budget of approximately $10 billion. We are the second largest municipality in the entire country. We have our own utility, DWP, which generates a significant amount of revenue for the city and has its own budget of about $6 billion. We also have the ports of Los Angeles and LAX here in the city of Los Angeles, which in and of themselves are economic engines for our city. So each council member in their individual district has broad authority to influence things and make decisions that affect day-to-day lives of our neighbors and our stakeholders in our communities. So whether that is zoning or development or whether to put in bike lanes and where to do that, the decisions that are made by our council members here at a local level really do impact in a significant way what everyday life looks and feels like for the citizens of Los Angeles. And then in terms of sort of the legislative process of it all, there are many different committees comprised of city council members. And those committees include things like public safety, planning and land use, budget and finance, homelessness and poverty, jobs and the economy. And those committees is actually where a lot of the work is done around policy development that impact important things in the city, like our economy, like public safety.
Wow, that is so helpful. It's truly incredible how much the city council is in charge of and what a big job it is. I would love to hear now a little bit more about you and why you decided to run for city council.
Yeah, so thank you for that. I absolutely love CD11 where I live. We are just incredibly blessed here in CD11 with some of the most incredible things that LA has to offer, from the Getty to the Skirball Center to PCH to Venice Beach to the Marvin Broad bike path that runs along our beautiful coastline. CD11 truly, in my mind, is the not only the economic, but the real cultural heart in many ways of Los Angeles. And I absolutely love my community. I take a lot of pride in the neighborhood that I live in, but our communities here on the west side of Los Angeles are struggling in many ways. And so I decided that with my background as a municipal attorney who works every day with city leadership to diagnose and fix policy issues and address issues that impact not only city workers, but city residents, I really wanted to get involved and make a difference and help make the west side of Los Angeles everything that it can and that it should be for the residents and the stakeholders who are here.
Awesome. Well, that is so good to hear. I live fairly close. I'm not in that district, but I live really close, and it is such a wonderful place to be, and really is kind of like the most iconic place, that you can think of in Los Angeles. But I know that there have been a lot of issues around not only homelessness, which is obviously a huge issue, but also affordability. And I think that those issues obviously are kind of super interconnected, because if you can't afford to live here, you get evicted, then you end up on the street. So I would love to hear how you as a city councilor could impact, first of all, the people who are currently unhoused, are currently living on the streets, how you would plan to help them, and then also how you would plan to make the city more affordable so that more people can live here and stay here in the city they love.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack in those two topics of affordability. So let me start with homelessness. I am mindful of the reality that there are 50,000 people approximately who sleep on our streets and sidewalks across the city of Los Angeles with nowhere to go, without adequate support, medical care services. And it is genuinely the humanitarian crisis of our time. I also recognize that if there are 50,000 people sleeping on the streets of Los Angeles, there are 50,000 stories and reasons why those individuals are where they are. Now, homelessness in the city of Los Angeles is not new. And in fact, we have seen this spiral out of control, certainly significantly in the last number of years. But in many ways, what we are witnessing is the product of decades of lack of planning and poor policy. And that spans the board from education to housing, to economic opportunity, to healthcare and mental health care. But with all of that in mind, I think that there are a number of significant components that need to be focused on in order to start getting out of the crisis that we're in. Number one is prevention of homelessness and reducing the inflow into that system. To some extent, that relates to affordability, and I'll save that piece of the discussion for just a moment. But as individuals are facing circumstances where they are housing insecure or on the cusp of homelessness, it is imperative that we have adequate systems in place to catch those individuals before they become homeless. There's a lot of studies and data that show that prevention of homelessness and keeping people housed is actually much more efficient economically than it is trying to deal with a problem once someone is already on the streets. So protecting the affordable housing that we have is an important component of that. But so are things like rapid rehousing vouchers and really ensuring that people can quickly move from one place to another or remain where they are with adequate resources. It's also important that folks who may be on the cusp of homelessness have the ability to get on-demand help. We really need to have a 24/7 manned hotline that is able to answer questions and direct people in the right direction to the right resources and programs that can immediately help address that issue. Now, as to the sort of longer term problem and addressing some of the chronic homelessness that we see in our city, I think it is critical that we start to rein back some of the spending on the long-term solutions. You know, we are building here in CD11 and elsewhere in the city at a rate of anywhere between $500,000 and $1 million per bed. At that rate of spending, not only would we need somewhere between 25 and $50 billion to get at the existing homelessness population, but it's decades down the pipeline. And it does nothing to bring shelter and resources immediately to the people who need that help today. So I would like to see immediate investment in the shorter term emergency and temporary and bridge housing solutions. I also think that it is imperative that we focus on both mental health and addiction issues. You know, we can have legitimate debate about, in many cases, what came first, addiction or homelessness or vice versa. But the reality is a significant number of people living on our streets are suffering from one or both of those issues. A study that was put out by the UCLA Policy Lab showed that 75% of unsheltered homeless self-report abusing drugs and alcohol. And those numbers were actually confirmed by Homeless Healthcare Los Angeles, which showed about 70% of their clients are using methamphetamine. And worse are the overdose rates because of fentanyl-laced street drugs like methamphetamine and heroin. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, in 2019, there were approximately 70,000 overdose deaths nationwide, and 40% of those were attributed to fentanyl. So that is a significant issue that we need to focus on. It is astounding to me that in the middle of a crisis like that, we don't have walk-in on-demand addiction and recovery services available to people. And that's something that I really want to see added to the menu of options that we're going to use to address the homelessness crisis. I also think it is really important that we look at existing government parcels and properties that we could rapidly convert into homeless shelters. There's also commercial infrastructure all over the city that could be repurposed. One of the examples of that I really love is PodShare, which is a great program here in Venice. I always really encourage people that if they have an opportunity to go look at it at 522 South Venice. It's a 4,000 square foot former church that now houses 50 people in shared living. And it's what I would call ultra affordable housing. It's a fantastic model. There are other programs like Haven and Share that use existing homes as shared housing, and those programs have proven to be extremely successful. So I think that we need to work on those, but at the same time, we also need to continue focusing on our long-term housing goals. But you know, we've seen that we've got to be better stewards of how we are spending and investing that money to ensure that we are helping the most people that we can as quickly and efficiently as we can. So those are some of the key steps that I think are going to be necessary to getting at the homelessness crisis that we are dealing with. And that is something that in every meeting I am in, we spend the vast majority of our time talking about. And I have had the privilege of meeting with dozens of homeless housing and service providers across our city. And there are people that are currently working on plans and solutions that I just want to thank and acknowledge for the very work that they are doing. And I look forward to the opportunity to partner and collaborate with them. And I hate to just keep talking, but you asked two very complicated.
I threw like the two biggest topics at you, so please keep going. I appreciate you tackling them both.
Right. So affordability also is another significant problem here in our city. You know, I really want Los Angeles to be a place where families and the people who work here can afford to invest and live and raise a family. I think as an initial matter, it is really important that we protect and we preserve the affordable housing that we do have. And one of the things that's happening currently is non-resident corporations are actually buying up the housing stock and contributing to the increase in prices and the limited supply that's available. And of course, all of that affects the affordability. In the last 30 years, we have seen the worst amount of production here in Los Angeles out of the last 120 years, including the Great Depression. And so really investing in building is going to be significant. Now, under the Build Back Better plan, there is actually about $170 billion that's been allocated for investment in public housing and rental assistance and some innovative new programs like assistance with down payments and things like that. It's really important to me, though, that when the city has an opportunity to use that funds, that we are good stewards and that we are investing that money so that we can meet the most need in a cost-effective way. I also believe that the real future in affordable housing is in our smaller community builders. Folks that focus on smaller scale housing, you know, between the 1 and 50 units. And for many of those builders, they're deterred out of the market because of the bureaucracy, because of the significant expenses associated with developing affordable housing in Los Angeles. And that is something that absolutely must be improved and streamlined. I also am committed to ensuring that we are building affordable housing for our workforce and for our families. A lot of what has been built over the last decade or two or three is actually market and luxury rate housing. And a lot of it actually is executive studios and one bedrooms that don't necessarily accommodate families. They help you hit those numbers that you want to have on paper in terms of available stock, but they don't necessarily get at the underlying issue of making this a city where our families and workers can afford to live. I also would like to see housing built that has an ownership component to it. I think that the pathway to home ownership in this city has become increasingly difficult for many families to achieve. So in addition to the rental units that we're bringing to market, it is very important to me that we are building housing that comes with homeownership opportunities.
No, that is so great. I know I love the city, and the thought that I could ever own a house seems impossible. So I appreciate people putting the thought into that. I know we are very close. Well, we're technically out of time, but I really do want to address this last question that I have. Obviously, there is a little bit of a lack of faith in government right now here in the city. Obviously not like jumping into specific issues, but there have been several indictments in the city council. And even outside of that, I think the kind of longer term lack of trust kind of accumulating over the years of voting to tax yourself, to care for the unhoused, and then, you know, just seeing the issue, more people on the streets, and nothing seems to be done about it. I think that that all has caused people to just not think that anything they do is going to make a difference and that their public leaders don't care. What would you do as a city councilor to kind of rebuild that public trust?
Yeah, no, you're on to something very important. And I would say, besides homelessness and public safety, this is the next biggest issue that folks bring up with me all of time. You know, voters and constituents here in CD11 and around the city are tired. They're tired of feeling as though their hard-earned tax dollars are being misspent. They are tired of feeling as though they have been misled and lied to. They are tired of leadership that isn't engaging or responding. You know, I am fully committed to restoring what it means to be an actual representative of the people who are going to send me to City Hall. And I am really committed to engaging with people all over the district, examining all sides of the issues and collaborating to build consensus so that I can lead from common ground. And there's actually a lot of it out there. If we had a council member who cared to build those relationships and find where that common ground is, we really could accomplish so much in this city. I also firmly believe in partnering with our community and neighborhood councils. Currently, you know, well, under the city charter, they are there to serve in an advisory capacity to the council member. And I am so impressed by the people across the district that are investing their time to participate. And those folks are the subject matter experts in their own communities. Behind the scenes, I've already been working with our community councils on some exciting initiatives. And it seems to many currently that a lot of those motions and resolutions end up in a black hole at City Hall. Those are my 30, 60, 90-day agendas when I'm elected, and I really look forward to rebuilding that, you know, local democratic collaboration with our communities and our constituents.
That's great. Thank you so much. I know that we kind of threw a lot of questions out in a very short amount of time, but I so appreciate you sharing, you know, your passion for the city and the ways you want to make it better. With that, before I close, I would love if you could share with people where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So I would welcome folks to go to my website, tracipark.com, TRACIPARK.com. You can sign up to receive my weekly email there. I do a deep dive into a different subject that affects all of us almost every week. I put one of those out. I don't have time for photos of shaking hands and kissing babies. I'm actually working on substantive issues. So you can sign up to receive those emails. Those are all compiled on the community news page. You can also contact me through the website or shoot me an email at tracipark4la@gmail. That's TRACIPARKFORLA@gmail. Or you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at tracipark4la.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for taking the time to talk to us. Thank you to the folks who are on live. In case you just caught the end of this or wanted to share it with other people, this will be on the Rise Together YouTube page, and it will also be here on our Instagram in the next week or so. So super appreciate everybody tuning in, and thank you, Traci, for spending time with us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you again to everyone at Rise Together who's working to make our city better for everyone.
Thank you so much. You have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.